Because there's three giant companies, BlackRock, State Street, and Vanguard, which own 88% of the S&P 500. And these are the biggest companies in the world. They all own each other. So it's really just one giant company. And and BlackRock has $10 trillion under management. The state of California, which is the fifth largest economy on the earth, has a GDP of $3 trillion. So BlackRock is more than 3 times bigger than the state of California. It is, in fact, the third largest economy on earth after Russia and China. And they own the stock market 88%. They now have decided they want to own all the farmland in our country and the rest of the world. And they want to own all the single-family homes. And they are on a trajectory now we are on a trajectory that within 6 years, 60% of the single-family homes in our country will be owned by corporations. And most of that is BlackRock. And you all know people who have been about to put money down on a home, and somebody comes in at the last minute and makes a cash offer. And when you figure out who is that person, it's an LLC with an ambiguous name. And who owns them is BlackRock. So today, the average income in this country is $5,000 less than the cost of basic human needs of food, transportation, and housing. So if you get the basic, the basic option of food, the lowest option of food, transportation, and housing, you still come out $5,000 in debt at the end of the year. How are Americans handling that? They're putting it on their credit cards. So, and we hit 2 weeks ago, we hit a giant milestone in history, $1 trillion in credit card debt in this country. And we went up $330 billion in the 3 previous years. And the companies, Visa, MasterCard, Wells Fargo, Citibank, Chase, and Morgan are charging 22% interest on that debt. If the mafia did that, it would be called loan sharking, they go to prison. But for these companies, it's just the cost, it's just business as usual. Who do you think owns all of those companies? BlackRock, State Street, and Vanguard. So they're strip mining systematically the wealth from the American public, and they're shifting it upward. And during COVID, we saw this. During COVID, they shut down 3.3 million businesses in this country with no due process, no just compensation, and no scientific citation, no notice and comment rulemaking, no democratic process. Just one guy said, shut them all down. A guy who'd never been elected to anything. He said, shut them all down without showing one scientific study. And they left open Amazon. And we all got a 3-year lesson in how to use Amazon. I didn't ever use Amazon before the pandemic. And I have to tell you, it's magic. You find a picture of something you like, and you hit the button, and it's in your driveway in 24 hours. And so, yeah, it's very tempting. But what happened? Amazon got to shut down all of its competitors. And I wrote a book about the lockdowns, not my Fauci book, but another book with Joe Mercola. And it was critical of the lockdowns. Amazon censored it. So they were minting hundreds of billions of dollars in profits from the lockdowns. And they were censoring people like me who were criticizing those government policies. So, they shut down all of their competition, and they're now the last man standing. 41% of black-owned businesses that closed during COVID will never reopen, and many of those had 3 generations of equity in them, of sweat equity, of families putting everything into that business, and they're closed now forever. All the local retailers who pay taxes in this community are shut down. The guy who used to employ your kid during the summertime, the guy who has a plaque on his wall from the local Boy Scout troop, thanking him for supporting them. The guy who pays for your kids' Little League jerseys or their hockey uniforms, they're all gone. But we got Amazon. Oh, Amazon pays local taxes here, right? No, they don't. At least they pay federal taxes. No. Last year, Amazon paid 0 in federal taxes.
Ooh.
So they're doing it right in front of us. We see what they're doing, and they don't care anymore. Now we got, a war. We committed $113 billion to the Ukraine war in March of 2022, and then this week we committed another $24 billion. When Zelensky was here, the Republicans and the Democrats all said, we're going to give them this $24 billion, and the one thing we're going to agree on, even if we shut down the government, Ukraine is the one group that's going to get its money. Oh, just to put that in perspective, the entire budget for EPA is $12 billion. So that's all we got for the environment in this country. We're giving 12 times that to Ukraine in 1 year. The entire budget for CDC is $12 billion. And that's all we got for health. They don't spend it well, but that's all we got. Oh. We committed $113 billion to Ukraine, which was March of 2022. We cut 30 million Americans, we cut them from food stamps. We cut their food stamp payments from $283 a month to $23 a month. And we cut 30 million people from welfare. So and that same month, the Fed printed $300 billion unanticipated to pay for the Silicon Valley Bank. So when the bankers need it and when the military contractors need it, we have plenty of money. When people in this country are starving, when working people, working poor in this country, need money for their children or for themselves, we don't have it. And in March, when we did this, when we made these decisions, Mitch McConnell was asked by a reporter, can we really afford to send $113 billion to Ukraine? And he said, don't worry, it's not really going to Ukraine. It's going to US military contractors, to General Dynamics, Raytheon, Lockheed, and Boeing. And he said, so it's really helping us in our country. And who do you think owns every one of those companies?
BlackRock.
So we can see what they're doing, and I'll tell you one other thing. The money that we gave them is technically a loan. This is what Tim Scott pointed out in the Republican debate the other day. He said, don't worry, we're not really giving the money to Ukraine, it's a loan. So raise your hand if you think that loan is ever going to get paid back. Right? It isn't going to get paid back. But why do we call it a loan? Well, we call it a loan because that allows us to impose conditions on Ukraine. And what are those conditions? First of all, total austerity, meaning anybody who's poor in Ukraine is going to stay poor and hungry. And most importantly, Ukraine has to put all of its assets up for sale to multinational corporations. Whatever it is, it's airports, it's ports, it's roads, anything that the government owns. But most importantly, the farmland. Ukraine's farmland is the breadbasket of the world. It's the biggest and single asset in Europe. It is the richest farmland in the world. People say that if you throw a boot on the ground in Ukraine, something will grow that you can eat. There have been wars fought over that farmland for 1,000 years. And, but Ukraine owns that farmland. So we've told them now you have to put all that farmland in a land bank and sell it to corporations, and 28% of it has already been sold. Monsanto, to Cargill, to other U.S. companies, and who do you think owns all of those companies? So here they are, they will own, you know, the head of BlackRock, the CEO is a guy called Larry Fink. He's also on the board of the World Economic Forum. They meet every year, the Billionaires Boys Club in Davos, to plan what life will look like for the rest of humanity. And they call their plan the Great Reset. Klaus Schwab, who's the head of that organization, when he was asked to explain, what does that mean? What is the Great Reset? He said, it means that you will own nothing, but you will be happy. So they're on their way to achieving at least the first part of that promise. And, you know, you watched the Republican debate the other night? I did. And I felt like I should get overtime pay for it. But all of them were talking about things that, you know, we were talking about 30 or 40 years ago, about all the issues that divide us, about guns and about trans and about, you know, getting tough on Mexico and about abortion and getting tough on Russia and getting tough on China, and they're all issues that are important issues, but they're not the central issues of our lives. The central issues of our lives are the ones I'm talking about now, and nobody mentioned BlackRock. Nobody mentioned the disintegration of life here in America, the disintegration of our economy, the disintegration of the middle class, the disintegration of mental health in this country, the fact that we're all being mass poisoned and mass propagandized at the same time. And all of these issues, when people are, you know, I run into people because of my job, I'm representing people against corporations. I hear these issues, I hear the way people are living and talking in this country, that elderly Americans who are splitting their prescriptions, cutting pills in two so they can pay for food and stretch their prescription. People changing ingredients so they can make it through the checkout line. People who are choosing between gasoline and food. I met a kid the other day who said, every Tuesday I have to make a decision about whether to eat dinner or fill up my car. And a young couple who's living in a rental apartment that they can no longer afford, who spent an evening with a crying baby in their laps, talking about, debating with each other about whether the baby was $50 sick or $100 sick or $500 sick before they bring him to a hospital. These are choices that Americans shouldn't be making.
Right.
And yet that's what's putting in front of us all the time, all of those issues that we've been talking about for 30 years and nobody solved them. Those are like the jangling keys. They're looking at them over here. They're saying to everybody, look at this, and meanwhile they're robbing the bank right over here.
Sure.
And the king and queen look over the balustrades of their castle and they see all of their subjects fighting each other, like we're doing today. Black, you know, all of these issues, and black against whites, and indigenous against immigrants, and Republicans against Democrats, and poor against rich. When all of those people are fighting, the king and queen look over and they go back and they pop champagne corks and finish their feast, because they know that those people are not coming over the castle home. And part of my intention of running for president is to bring Americans together and stop the fighting and then go forward.
Yeah, hello, testing.
Yeah, I don't think that's on.
Hello.
There we go.
So I want to say thank you, Mr. Kennedy. that was very informative, right? But I want to go through a few questions that we was talking downstairs, but I want to have a seat and go over these few questions. So one of the questions that I have, college is very expensive, right? What are the plans to make it more affordable, and how are you going to deal with the debt crisis?
Yeah, I mean, you're talking about the college, about student loan crisis.
Correct.
Yeah, so, student loans are actually the only thing higher than credit card debt, the only debt, personal debt in this country higher than credit card debt is student loan debt. 1.7 billion dollars. So, and the biggest group, the biggest demographic that holds that debt, as far as 1.7 trillion, the biggest demographic that holds that debt is black women, who are the most educated demographic. So the burden is falling on that class, and it's like an anchor on their lives, their growth, their ambition, their capacity to function in society. And the things I will do to end that is one of the reasons that this debt load is so huge is because a bill that was passed in 2005 that was written, authored, and championed by Joe Biden. And it was a rewriting of the bankruptcy laws. And it allows the corporations to declare bankruptcy when they have debt, and declares individuals the only group that is not allowed to declare bankruptcy and discharge their debt in bankruptcy is people who have taken student loans. And they're the only group that can't refinance the debt. No, if you have a student loan, you can. And let's say you end up owning a house, you should be able to take a mortgage on that house, pay off your student debt, and then pay a much lower rate to the bank if the interest rate's up. But you can't do that. They won't allow you to do that. And that's because the big financial houses have so much, like BlackRock, have so much clout on Capitol Hill. So it's crazy that kids cannot discharge for bankruptcy and they're not allowed to refinance. And I will make it so that you can discharge your bankruptcy and you can refinance. The other, there's other things. People shouldn't be paying interest on their student loans. After World War II, the GI Bill, we had all these other advantages that allowed Americans to get an education, and we created a middle class in this country that became the greatest economic engine in the history of mankind, because we were sending people out anew into the marketplace without loaded down with debt. But since then, the price of education has tripled or quadrupled. So kids today are paying a lot more for it. A lot of jobs require that you have a college education, even jobs that you don't need a college education for. 41% of people who have graduated college are in jobs for which they don't need a college education. And so, what I'm going to do is I'm going to end interest payments by people of student debts. I'm going to allow people to discharge in bankruptcy, and I'm going to allow people to refinance. I'm going to have to push legislation.
Thank you. My next question is, how do you reignite support for the trade?
The trades.
The trades.
Yeah, well, that's a related issue. Is that today, there's a lot of good jobs as mechanics. I was talking to a friend of mine yesterday who lives in Crescent View, Colorado, and she said, you cannot get a plumber in Crescent View, Colorado. There's plumbers that are available that are brought in by people who are building homes, but if you own a home there, they're completely unavailable. And I know many communities like that where it's very tough to get a mechanic, a plumber, electrician. There's lots of jobs out there. So why are we telling every kid, hey, you have to go through the 4-year college track? Why aren't we giving education equal education opportunities. The kids don't want to go to college, but want to do something different with their life. Why is it the federal loan program will pay for your college education for your 4-year liberal arts degree, and they're not going to pay for your education if you get a 1-year community college or 2-year community college to learn to be a mechanic, a plumber, or electrician?
Thank you. All right, my next question is, right, you call for domestic peace corps. Can you tell us something about that?
My uncle launched the Peace Corps in 1961, and throughout my life, I've literally run into thousands and thousands of people whose lives had experienced change. And it changed the view of America all around the world. My uncle said, John Kennedy said, I don't want African children, and Asian children, and Latin American children, when they think of the United States of America, to think of a man with a gun and a uniform. I want him to think of a Peace Corps volunteer. And what I will do is I will enlarge the Peace Corps so that you can get, first of all, for certain categories of Peace Corps volunteers, you will not need a college education. You can go there with high school education. And that you'll be able to serve in the Peace Corps and serve here at home, in your community, taking care of elderly people, caring for the sick, tutoring children, cleaning up the environment, helping farmers with regenerative farming, converting to regenerative farming and organic agriculture, and create a class of people who can give 2 or 3 years to our country. And if you do that, you will get benefits. Right now, if you're a poor kid in Appalachia, if you're a black kid in Compton or Harlem, or Watts or Bed-Stuy, and you're not an athlete, you're not a musician, for a lot of those kids, the only way out of that level of poverty is through the military. And it's a good deal, because you get insurance, you get housing, you get food, you get a career. But then the catch is you have to go kill people. And you come out with PTSD and drug addiction and all these other issues. And why can't we give an opportunity for our kids to do service for their country without forcing them to kill people along the way? Serving your country, and you can get at least a portion of your education paid for, and you may get a housing stipends, etc. But we need to reorient our country away from empire, away from militarism, and more towards building communities and building a sense of community.
Anybody out there that got any questions for Mr. Kennedy, please raise your hand. We're going to listen to a few questions. Okay.
First of all, thank you for coming tonight. We need you. We really do. Republican booing his converted me. Okay. You got my total support. I want to know what you think we can do to convert more Republicans to come to where you are in the middle. I think this whole country is so far this way and so far that way. We have to find some middle ground. I think you are the answer to that. I appreciate that. We need that, but I talked to my Republican friends, and they've been brainwashed. watch. They're the lemmings that are just following the people off the cliff. And I can't seem to make them see or even go to one of your podcasts and listen to it because they're just hearing what they hear from the national media and buying into it. So it's difficult. How can we work against that?
Yeah, I mean, I think, well, first of all, thank you for that comment. And what I would say, first of all, what you're doing, wearing the T-shirt, I think that's the best thing you can do. To give this campaign visibility, put wear a button, use a bumper sticker, wear a T-shirt, and when people will talk to you, or put a love sign up, and just give it more and more of it. I'm gonna. This is a long term. It is a long term fight for me. So, and I'm getting. We have 1,000 media requests right now. We're gonna start getting in front of Americans, and when I get in front of America, what we find is that if you can get somebody to listen to one of my podcasts, there's a very, very high conversion rate. Because what they've heard of the media about me is generally not true. It's very distorted and very kind of malevolent. And it's a very sour picture of me. But when they hear me actually speak, I have a very, very high conversion rate among Republicans and Democrats. I would ask you to do, I'm very, very grateful to you for what you're doing and for wearing the T-shirt. I think, that's the best way to do it. We went to the Bethel African Methodist Episcopal Church this morning with Pastor Foster, and he was talking about when Moses was very old, he was 120 years old, and everybody was angry at him because for 40 years he had promised everybody, we're going to the promised land. And after 40 years of wandering in the wilderness, they were like, we want to go back to Egypt. And he goes to God and he has a conversation. He says, I think they're going to stone me. They're going to kill me. And God takes him up to the top of the mountain. And he looked and he said, I'm going to show you the promised land. And he showed him across the Jordan River to the promised land. And that story, Martin Luther King, on his last day alive, he didn't reference that story, but he was clearly referencing it because he said, I've been to the mountaintop. I've seen the promised land. I've seen the power and glory. And he said, you're going to get there. You may not get there with me. I may not be able to lead you. And that's what God told Moses. You can't lead them across. But somebody else, they're going to get there. And that's what King said. And the minister said at that point, he said, we're going to the promised land. The danger is that we waver to the left or to the right. We can only go forward. And that to the left and right is driven by fear. And that we cannot give in to fear. We have to go forward. And that means we need courage.
Do you have anybody else with a question?
Hey,
Little kid here.
I want to actually ask about Cheryl. What does Cheryl want to do when she becomes First Lady?
She's going to have all her Hollywood friends over and say, what she's really going to do is, I think her biggest issue is education. And, Cheryl made a TV show. Cheryl ended up, she volunteered when she first came to California. She volunteered in the school in Compton. And the school, she was shocked about the condition at school because the clocks didn't work in the classroom. And she asked, why don't the clocks work? Because the kids need to know what it's, that's important. And they said, not only did the clocks not work, but the PA system doesn't work, and the fire alarms don't work. And she ended up doing a doing she went to NBC and she pitched a show that we'll rebuild the schools. And they, or ABC, and they did the show, and they went around the country, and they offered people to rebuild the schools in urban neighborhoods, in poor neighborhoods. They went to Detroit, they went to all over the country, and they, in Detroit, there were schools where she said there was trash cans in the middle of the aisles between this area because they had leaky roofs. None of the kids had computers, and they would come in with this show, which was aired on ABC. It was called School Pride, and they would rebuild the school, but the condition was the parents had to be involved. And she said the response of the parents was extraordinary, that there were lines around the block because people want their schools to be better. The communities care about their schools, and neglecting the school is not happening because the parents don't care about it. I think, when the issue that she's most excited about being First Lady is that she'll be able to do something like that for urban schools all across the country. I think that's
Right here.
yeah, you.
Come up to the alley.
First, I want to say thank you for coming to Clark Carolina. I'm a student here. I'm a freshman. What's my name? My name is Jaya, but everybody really calls me Jay. I actually just recently applied to work on your campaign as well. But my question is, as a student that goes to the HBCU and who also, I know you mentioned student loans, I actually had to take out 3 in order to go to school here. And growing up with a single mother and everything, it was hard, and the dream of going to college was always something that was fun to me. And I chose this school not only because it's rich history and that it was an HBCU, but it pretty much, I felt was going to point me in the direction I wanted to go in as far as my career. But I can't say that knowing that the funding for our school and for many other HBCUs in the country was significantly cut in these last few decades. I just want to know what you would do to change that.
He said to make the school more affordable, and because the funding was cut, what can you do to change that and make it more affordable?
Are you talking about for Clark?
Not just for Clark, but for like
Do you go to Clark?
I go to Clark, yes sir.
So are you talking about the HBCUs or?
Yes sir.
I can't answer that question. I don't know I just don't know what the funding, what the funding mechanisms are that the federal government, through which the federal government funds the HBCUs. But I will be a supporter of HBCUs. I think that the 2 things that we really need to do in the Black community is to, number 1, make sure that there's access to capital in those communities, and that there's good education. We're letting down an entire generation of kids with the education system, and it's people are concerned about racism. My family's entire legacy has been, the primary battle was to fight racism. My father, Uncle, he's never going to change human nature. And we came, we're hardwired for tribalism and to look for differences in people. And you're never going to be able to change that part of human nature. And what you do is you equip people to deal with racism and hate when they encounter it. And if you have confidence in yourself, I was called names when I was a kid because I was, part of my life I spent in schools that were mainly Protestant at the time, there was a lot of anti-Catholic prejudice, and people would call me a mackerel snatcher, these words that were supposed to be anti-Catholic, but it never bothered me, because I had confidence in myself. And what we want to do is give a generation of black kids education so that they have self-confidence, and then opportunities so they can build businesses, so that they can take care of themselves, so they can care for their families. Self-esteem doesn't come from what people think of you. It comes from you doing the single things in your life. And so my primary objective of dealing with the issues of race in this country is not going to just tell people stop being racist, but rather to build up opportunity, to build up capital, to build up mentorship in business in black communities. I've been working on this for 35 years on the board of Bedford Studies and Restoration, one of the poorest communities in New York, and we made business in that community flourish. I'm doing a series of things that I will do with all communities around this country when I become president. And the other part of that is education, is making sure that the best education possible is available to every black child in this country. Well, thank you very much for having me.
Hello. Can I speak or no?
What?
Hello, sir. How are you today?
That's weird.
I'd like to know a general question. How are you going to address the seniors? I am 77, so I'm just curious about your take on the senior population of the United States. So with my being 77, think of the historic moments I've had. So could you address that, please?
Let me ask you something. What do you think I should be doing? I think that the central thing that needs to happen is to protect Social Security. But you tell me what else do you think that I should be doing?
Well, I've been fortunate, so therefore, if I'm going to join your team, I have to do a lot of research. I have to research the seniors that are around me and seniors that are not around me to see what their needs are.
Okay, well, I need you. You're hired. Yes. You're next, but you with the beautiful very brown hair.
I hope can everyone hear me? Okay, my name is Ashaki Noni Nichols. I'm also a presidential candidate for 2024. I'm running as an independent candidate. My question for you is about abortion. So we know the Roe versus Wade was overturned. I'm grateful that it was turned over to the states, not the government, because no one should be able to have autonomy over your body, because we do have the First Amendment. We have inalienable rights given to us by God. So my question to you is, now that the question is back on the table, how should we deal with abortion? My opinion is that it should be taken out of the birth control conversation. It's a procedure. You've already gotten pregnant, so obviously the birth control didn't work. As president, would you be willing to ensure the rights of autonomy over our bodies? Because it's a slippery slope. Because once you start telling somebody what they can and cannot do with their bodies, what's to say you can and cannot tell them what else to do? Get a shot, go here, go there. You can't get paid, you cannot work if you do not do this with your body because I say so. So that is my question to you.
Okay, so for those of you who didn't hear, the question was about abortion. And I'll say a couple things. One is I've spent a large part of my career as a medical freedom advocate. I don't think the government has a right to tell anybody what they should do with their bodies. runs a facility here that I spent the afternoon at called Los Angeles, and where they give assistance to mothers who want to bring their babies to term. And one of the points that she made, they lost a building and they've had to raise money. I think they've raised $1,800 now on the way to, but they have to do it on $5 contributions. And that what she said is there in DeKalb County, there was 6,100 abortions last year, and about 4,500 of those were black, and all that 80 or 90% of the abortions in this country are with black people, and that she said that the federal government will send an abortion clinic, pay for an abortion clinic in your neighborhood, and that they're in black neighborhoods, and white neighborhoods are getting fertility clinics, black neighborhoods are getting abortion clinics, and that she described it as a genocide. She understands my view and she supports me. But she also makes the point that there's a lot of money out there for people to terminate pregnancy, but people who want to bring the babies to term, there's no money out there for them. And I will make that.
We have time for 2 more questions, and then we're going to do selfies with everyone, and we got 1 and 2.
Can we get this little kid too at some point?
It's a pleasure to meet you, Mr. Kennedy. Thank you for coming to Clark Atlanta. My name is Michael Taylor. I'm a recent graduate of Howard University School of Law. I'm also the host of the Political Mike podcast, in which young people are the focus in terms of their political perspectives, whether they're on the left or the right or in between. I recently had the privilege of having Rick Wilson, a Republican strategist and co-founder of the Lincoln Project, on the platform this past Wednesday. And he put it this way. He said that the Lincoln Project is the antithesis to the No Labels movement, and that the No Labels movement is designed to pull Democrats from Biden in the way the Lincoln Project is designed to pull Republicans from Donald Trump. And in an environment where a lot of people are saying the Constitution is at stake, because you have the former president promising retribution, and to fill the Justice Department and the FBI with political loyalists, do you believe that your candidacy would pose a threat to Biden in a similar way that your uncle, Senator Ted Kennedy, posed a threat to Jimmy Carter's candidacy, weakening him in 1988 against Ronald Reagan, or even Pat Buchanan against George H.W. Bush in 1992?
Well, my intention is to weaken both. Who are intent on pushing war after war, and that, if you really want to look at an existential threat, we're backing against the wall of a country that has 1,000 more nuclear weapons than we do, and a lot better nuclear weapons than we have. And they've got a whole lineup of wars after that with China and everything else, and I feel some days that I know President Biden for a long time, and I feel a lot of days that other people are calling the shots. That our country is being run by anonymous, where these foreign policy decisions are being made by anonymous people wearing lanyards who none of us would know who they are. I think it's important that's one of the reasons I've asked the president to come out of the White House and to do unscripted encounters with voters, at least to debate. I love that. But at least if he's unwilling to debate, to do unscripted encounters with voters, to do talk about democracy and the Constitution, to read Judge Gowdy's decision, 155-page decision, which shows that 37 hours after he took the oath of office, to uphold the Constitution, that President Biden was violating the First Amendment by having White House staff contact the social media sites and asking them to deplatform him. So I was criticizing his policies. 37 hours afterwards. And that continued for a long time. So I don't, I think people who say that the Constitution is going to be threatened by Trump, the Constitution, I feel, is on shaky grounds either way. And that we need to
Hello, my name is Gabriel. I'm 11 years old, and is it true that you're running as an independent?
Oh, yeah. It's good. It's good.
If you come to Philadelphia, campaign, pay for your plane ticket, and then you can hear what I'm talking.
My man. What's the hardest part of standing up?
What is your name?
My name is Noah.
I met you before, too.
What's the hardest part of standing up to the DNC machine? They have a lot of money. What's the hardest part of standing up against the DNC machine, and how do you plan to fight against them? Good luck.
The hardest part for me is not having access to the mainstream media like CNN. I don't care. It doesn't bother me if people say bad things about me that are not true. I feel like, I know what the truth is. God knows what the truth is, and I'm okay with that. It's part of politics. But I'd like to be able to get on those shows and defend myself, or to at least tell my side of the story. And so that I think is the most disheartening thing, is that when I grew up with a media that was trying to be neutral, and that was telling both sides of the story. And that isn't true. Like CNN, MSNBC, the New York Times, none of them will actually allow me to debate. None of them will allow me airtime where somebody asks me a question I give an answer. And that's the most frustrating part. But I'm enjoying the campaign, and I feel like I was raised in a family where we were taught that to believe that our lives were going to be consumed by some great controversy, and that would be a great privilege for us to be able to have some effective role in it. So I feel like my life is a privilege, and that all the criticism is just part of that, and that's what you're supposed to do. We're not here to build fame for ourselves or to make a big pile, and whoever dies with the most stuff wins. We're here to build character, and that's the only thing that's important. Criticism and attacks by other people are touchstones for spiritual growth. And every time somebody attacks you, and you respond in a dignified way without responding with hatred or anger, then you grow your character. So every time somebody attacks me, it's an opportunity for me. It's not something that I